Could you tell the court what happened this time?
Joining us now, defense attorney, former head prosecutor Bob Bianchi. Bob, I'm torn. On one hand, I said to Julia, you know, a mother and a father, of course they're going to speak on behalf of their child to get out of jail if that's what they want, which is what the parents are doing. On the other hand, as a judge, I would want to hear if she were to get out, if she were to be released, what would she do? Where would she go? How would she support herself? And they are both saying, we will help her. We will help her move to Arizona. We have the financial resources. We have a plan for her. Please let her out. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on listening to this as a former homicide prosecutor, I'm glad I never had to argue a motion to have somebody released from jail after 25 years. They usually serve life sentences here in New Jersey. That said, the judge obviously has to look at the victim side of this family. There's two victims here. These are significant aggravating factors. But, Judge, you and I have talked offline personally and in many other contexts. One of the great things that I used to tell my assistant prosecutors was don't just try the mechanics of a murder case. There's a lot of human nature to understand what goes on and what we do as trial attorneys. You learn the good, the bad, the ugly, the 7 deadly sins and the virtues and all of those things. And here in this particular case, they're asking the judge to extend mercy. And so they're going to the parents here. And will this have the appeal, the je ne sais quoi, if you will, for the judge to make the ultimate decision that he's going to let her out after 2 people were killed? Now, if the case were weak on the evidence or the prosecutor, like in this case, supports her being released, as a judge, I'm going to be extremely attentive to that because the prosecutor's got a better feel for the inside baseball as to what went on here. But nevertheless, these emotional things, you know, the recidivism rate for murderers is anywhere between 1% to 3% for another murder, and 3% to 5% that they'd even commit another crime. We often said in the homicide squad, these are really, honestly, from the standpoint of future behavior, the least dangerous people that we see come through the system. And I know that's really peculiar. They've done a terrible thing. But really, a lot of the people I prosecuted, you could wrap your arms around the reasons why they did it. Now, sometimes you get a maniac out there, don't get me wrong. Jealousy, anger is why I mentioned the deadly sins. Something that's a flash, a hot point, anger, and they're motivated in a way that they would never do something like that again, nor would they have ever done anything like that before. So there's a lot of deep texture about emotion like this. And I know the rest of the public, last point, wants to say, throw the key away and all that. But as prosecutors, there are people I've prosecuted that I wish would be released earlier.
I'm glad you mentioned, Bob, the prosecutor in this case who knows the inside of all of this. And we have a clip of the comparison of that prosecutor. It's Larry Sells. He's a former prosecutor now, so he's not the one that's going to be sitting there at the state's table. But let's listen to how his take on Miss Pender has changed.
And I stand firm in my convictions that she is a very, very dangerous person. She's capable of doing about anything, but she more than likely would get somebody else by some means to do that for her. She just has that sort of control over men.
And I was outside the courtroom. The media were talking to me. The next thing I know, I'm calling her a female Charles Manson. Do I think she was? Certainly not now. I don't think that.
And Bobby's changed his tune. There was an affidavit from the boyfriend who said, I did it all myself. She's an innocent lady. Let her free. I mean, that says a lot about this particular defendant.
You know, listen, when I train prosecutors all the time, I tell them, you got to take some zip off the fastball, especially when you're a little younger. I think I wasn't young at that point in time. You seem like a mature prosecutor. And when you're in the fight, you tend to say things and think things, and you believe your position and you advocate. But afterwards, when you have time to decompress and time to mature, maybe additional information comes to your attention. This concerns me most about this case. If I were a judge, double murder, plot, plan, premeditated, you're not getting out. When I hear a prosecutor say that they're worried about the evidence in the case, now I'm starting to get nervous, because it's one thing to have a double murderer spend the rest of their life in jail. It's another thing to have an innocent or potentially innocent person. And we've all been around the block enough to know that sometimes in the heat of the fight, prosecutors cross lines. And I'm wondering whether or not in the light of the fog going away, he's reconsidering the way he prosecuted.
It's been many decades since this all happened. Bob Bianchi, thank you for that. Again, defense attorney and former head prosecutor Bob Bianchi. From the position of the victims, I mean, this could all be part of her manipulation. She manipulated her boyfriend. That's what prosecutors thought. Manipulated a guard to get herself released, where she had a jailbreak. And now the judge and prosecutor, the judge is listening, but the prosecutor, who used to be on the case, says she deserves to be released.
Okay, listen, I don't want to be like the Grinch in the holiday season, okay? Excuse me, but cry me a river. If you are guilty of murdering 2 people, then you are right where you belong. The only thing that moves me in any direction is if the evidence or there was a trial error and an innocent person is in jail. As a judge, if the answer to that is no, all this really perturbs me, to be honest with you. She can't have the cup of coffee. She can't have the hug. I can hear the prosecutor right now. You could see me. The prosecutor and me is ready to jump out of my chair saying, you know what? Then you shouldn't have plotted and planned the murder and execution of 2 people who'll never have a cup of coffee, who'll never get a phone call with their parents, will never have an opportunity at a loving one of their best friends, that will never be able to see the sunrise or the sunset again. So I'm sorry, not 1, but 2 people. There's no way that any of this is actually irritating me. It's bothering me. If you're innocent, that's one thing. If not, then this is nothing other than somebody that doesn't have any remorse or accept any responsibility for the slaughtering of 2 people.
And what about 2 things? Number 1, we know she's also escaped with the help of a person employed at the prison. She escaped, she was caught again, so she has the ability, I guess, to convince people to do things for her or with her. But also, let me ask you this. There's an affidavit, and I'm holding it up because we have a copy of it. And this is the one Julia mentioned earlier, where the co-defendant, Richard Hull, says it was not her, that he did it, that she did not know this was going to happen. I, the co-defendant, have been carrying this burden for some time. I want to make the right on the wrongs. The only reason she was there was because she was scared for her life. Do you believe this to be new evidence which warrants perhaps a consideration of her getting out of jail?
Look, you literally have to be the trial prosecutor and the people with all the 40 and 50 boxes, banker boxes of materials, in order to know whether or not that is somebody with a belated assertion of trying to cover for somebody or not. But I will say this, as a prosecutor, this backs me up. All right, I do not want to believe that I have convicted somebody of something that they are innocent of. So I'm certainly taking that aspect of this case, like I said previously, very seriously. And the answer to that is, if I'm convinced as a prosecutor at any point in time that a conviction of somebody, even after serving 25 years, was wrongfully secured, even if it doesn't mean they're innocent, but wrongfully secured, then I am moving to dismiss the case and or have them released from prison, because I don't want to take that chance. That's a lot different than showing her any level of mercy if she did do it.
Interesting case, for sure. And as we're watching this, Julia, all I can think is there's a lot of levity and lightness, which we don't usually see during these kinds of sentencing hearings.
That is true, but we're going to continue watching it. Our thanks to Bob Bianchi for joining us tonight, and coming up in the next hour.